podcast, I have Chris Munnery, who is Senior Key Account Manager at IngramSpark in Victoria. Chris, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Jess. Thanks so much for inviting me. Good to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here from massive IngramSpark, which prints books to 45,000 retailers globally.
Yeah,
amazing.
Look, it's getting up there. It's 40,000 at the moment, and also all of the major ebook distributors as well. So
yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
I thought it would be fantastic for people who maybe have heard of IngramSpark but don't exactly know how it works. So what is IngramSpark and when did it start in Australia?
Yeah, well, you can go way back to the 1960s if you want. For Ingram, because it started with I think what was called back then, Jess, the Tennessee Book Company, and that was birthed, if you like, to provide textbooks for kids from remote areas, is my understanding. So that's kind of where it all began, and then it kind of has grown and grown from there to the Ingram Content Group, I suppose, is where you would start. And lightning source is another term that the industry would be aware of. So lightning source kind of began in 1998 as a print-on-demand option, and so both lightning source and IngramSpark was kind of birthed from the Ingram Content Group. So as the technology became available, and there was a gap in the market, I suppose, for print on demand. The technology caught up with that gap, and Ingram now facilitates that from a self-publishing platform through IngramSpark, which kicked off we've just had our 10-year anniversary, so around 2013.
Okay.
The Australian facility, I think, began, around 2011. We were printing onshore in Australia, and then IngramSpark was not long after that kicked off for the self-publishing industry.
Right, and demand must be surging every year, I can imagine.
It's amazing, it's I've come from a traditional public publishing background, and so to kind of see this platform that facilitates anyone literally to go in and set up an account, put their content together, format their content, add a cover, and print themselves a book in really good quality. So it is growing and growing. There's thousands and thousands of people using IngramSpark just in Australia and New Zealand, and tens of thousands of
around the world.
Accounts around the world. Yeah.
What's the relationship between Lightning Source and IngramSpark, and what are their different functions?
Yeah, it's a good question. Good question, Jess. It's Lightning Source is more servicing kind of your.
Could you please tell me what is the difference? What's the relationship between IngramSpark and Lightning Source, and what are the different functions?
Yeah. Well, we're the same business, so we're using the same facility. It's just Lightning Source is servicing a number of really big educational accounts, and the bigger publishing market in Australia, with kind of longer print runs, whereas IngramSpark is your kind of self-publishing, can be an order for 1 unit, or it can be an order for 500 units, but it's all done kind of through the IngramSpark platform. So Lightning Source is more kind of if you picture, I suppose, just a traditional publisher in Melbourne, a bigger publisher that has a relationship or a contract with a printing facility, And so that is kind of more along the lines of Lightning Source, but utilizing print on demand capability, which is becoming more and more appealing for some of these publishers who, would like to perhaps keep their backlist in print, and through print on demand, they can do that. They can have their titles sitting there ready to go, should they need to order or top up or, yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, is IngramSpark only for self-published authors?
Well, it's where most of our accounts start. So most of our accounts start with, logging a title and putting it out into the marketplace through the platform. But having said that, many of these accounts then, when they've done their first one, that's probably going to be the hardest one they do.
Yeah.
And the second one will be the second hardest.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And, we do try and make it as easy as we can, but, essentially you're talking about what used to be a fairly complex, and I don't need to tell you this, Jess, you know it, but what was a complex publishing process, and we're kind of trying to facilitate it for everyone. So there's going to be a bit of a learning curve there, and there's some very smart people I've met recently in the US that are just trying to make it as easy and easier as we can. But yeah, essentially that's the platform for a starting point. And what we're finding though is a lot of these authors, once they've done that, then they'll have their network and they'll have contacts that are saying, hey, I've got this great title that I want to do, but I don't really know where to start. And then so they kind of then become little mini publishing houses through IngramSpark themselves. So they're facilitating this with their knowledge that they've acquired, and kind of saying, well, you could, for some of them, it's like you can still take 100% of your royalties, your compensation, and they'll just charge a service for getting them to that point, and where they can then hand the title back to them. And
well, this is what Hembry Books is exactly set up to do, is because I had a steep learning curve. It can be really stressful. What do you think? Because all my clients, they keep 100% of their royalties. I have a set fee that goes into building the book. And then after that, they go into the world. What term do you call that? Because it's not quite hybrid publishing by all definitions, is it? Would you say assisted publishing? We need a better word.
We do. Yeah. Well, it's, I think you're assisting authors. So, you're looking at an author assist service. Whereas, you're quite right, Jess. Your hybrid publishing, I kind of think, the terms are all starting to merge a little bit as technology improves, aren't they? But, I would say it's hybrid is more that the author stays with the publisher to a certain extent, and they kind of keep the flow going through distribution. They keep kind of, whatever other services they're doing, perhaps with things like, revision of metadata and all of those kind of technical things that some authors, kind of want that managed.
Yeah, and in return for keeping a portion of the royalties, but not a smaller amount than a traditional would.
Yeah. Well, they'll still, kind of have a lot more control. So, it's kind of like, where do they want to sit? So, many just want to get to that point where it's like, okay, the title's up, it's in the Ingram distribution, global distribution network. So, their title can be bought in and shipped in a few days in England. And
any bookstore in the world.
Yeah, that's right. So, it's, I suppose, where they want to jump off.
And it's really evolving. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And, places like, Hembry, is great. because, when we have, reputable companies like you that can help the authors get started, it gives us something, that we can recommend too.
Yeah.
That they're looked after, in their early journey where, we don't want them to drop off.
No, I always want a second book, a third book, because writing books is amazing. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Chris, can anyone write and upload a book to Ingram? What kind of quality controls are there?
Yeah. So there's, we print at scale, Jess, and, so our facility can do, 15, 20,000 books a day if required.
Wow.
So, it's we do print at scale. So obviously not every page of every book can be checked, but spot checks are done through the printing process.
Are those spot checks done by a human, or do you have technology to do that?
No, by our staff, by operators.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of happening. Look, at scale, at such volume and scale, things can happen, mistakes can happen, which which we can quickly rectify. But yeah, the other thing is that anyone can go in, set up an account. All you need is you would need to put in your credit card details so that we can charge you for the printing, and also your bank. Or more exciting for your bank details, so we can pay you compensation for when you start selling. That's the exciting part.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of is your kickoff point to starting your account, and then you go through. We have lots of tools. I know, you're aware, Jess. We have lots of tools in there to try and help, and file creation guides and online help. We've almost got so much, it's
overwhelming.
How do you direct it to people? But yeah, that's essentially where they go in. Once the books are kind of, and then obviously the author gets an e-proof, and they can, tick off the e-proof, or they can order themselves a hard copy and actually physically have a look at the book, and and away they go. The titles themselves, also go through our catalog integrity team, and so the reason behind that is just to protect our catalog. We don't want titles out there with misleading information or anything that will do disservice to the catalog. So the catalog team have a look at that. We don't want people, for example, filling a book with, or having half a book with blank pages, or those.
And there are swindlers out there. You do hear about it, or they just. I mean, it's a growing concern, I'm sure, is the AI generated books where they're just trying to make a profit with a bang a title on it, put it in Chat GPT, and sell as many as they can.
Oh well, AI. That's there's another podcast in itself, I'm sure, for you, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, it is.
With that coming in, and but it's one thing to use kind of I suppose AI in a workflow sense or in a marketing sense. It's like pop.
That's
in
a tool.
As a tool, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, that's the integrity team are there to kind of monitor and filter out that kind of content.
Okay. Now, could you tell me about the relationship, if any, between IngramSpark and Amazon, which is another giant in this print-on-demand marketplace?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, Jess, we can't talk specifically about, contracts with any of our partners and retailers, but yeah, any of the bigger players in the industry, can use, they can use our extended distribution network. So, we get to a lot of places that a lot of other publishers can't, just because we're one of the biggest global distribution companies in the world. So, we get to a lot of places around the world, and to libraries and bricks and mortar, and so yeah, any of these these people with arrangements with us can kind of use our print on demand to perhaps for shortfall of content, or if they're trying to get their books out really quickly into the marketplace, and it's just another service that we can offer.
Amazon actually prints at your facilities, right? And they're absolutely enormous.
Well, yeah, they could use our extended distribution, yeah, for sure, to print in our Australian facility and use that capability.
Yeah, wow. The quality of print on demand books nowadays, how does it stack up against offset printing?
Oh, look, it's a great question, isn't it? I mean, it's so different now, even from 5, 10, let alone 10 years ago. So nowadays, you should be able to pick up 2 books in a bookstore and have a look at them, and not be able to tell, your consumer, your reader that's not looking in detail like we all do in the industry, probably going to find it hard to see the difference.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, the technology is there. We have, with our offerings, we have not only the groundwood paper and the white and the cream and the heavier 50-pound, 70-pound paper, but we also have color, and then we have premium color and ultra premium. So we're trying to offer now. So, a lot of those options that are available or were available in the past, in offset, and but now, authors can do kids books and those kind of things, cooking books with us. Our trim sizes go from 4x6 up to kind of your 11 by 8.5, 8.5 by 11 portrait landscape. You can have square books 8x8. So we've got a lot of flexibility there, and it's a great way for authors to come in and think about their content, like where's their book going to go. Walk into a bookshop, walk into a library, have a look at if you're doing a kids book, have a look at the kids book. What sizes are they? What's going to kind of sit, and pricing as well, obviously.
Yeah.
How does the pricing work?
Okay, let's talk royalties. If someone has a book that retails for, say, $30, what is the author's royalties when they use IngramSpark?
Yeah, so the way it works is it depends on a number of things, Jess. Obviously, it depends on number of pages. It depends on, are you going hardcover? Are you going paperback? Are you going color interior, all those sort of things? But if we're talking, I suppose, if we're talking, let's say a 6x9 black and white paperback for around the $30 mark, with 128 pages or something, you'd be talking about well, let's work it through. So you're talking about, say, $30 roughly for your retail price. You would then put on your discount. So we would recommend that you put on, in Australia, you're talking probably 55% discount to get it into bricks and mortar stores and to attract sales through, all that massive retail distribution network we have. So if you're putting 55% that off, that brings it down to, around the $12.60 mark. And then the printing costs might be around the $5.60, $70 for something like that. So you're talking maybe around $6 publisher compensation left for you after that point. But yeah, that obviously changes if you're doing color interior and you've got, you want to insert some color imagery in the book. Then you'll need to price accordingly and look, the great fun thing to do for authors is, have a look at our online calculators, punch in some numbers in the publishing compensation calculator, and also the print and ship, because what we find here is that, authors in Australia do very well at getting their own websites going and selling direct to consumer, through
they do.
Through their website. So that is, of course, you're selling direct. So you're taking off the 55%.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But even with the 55%, a self-published author is earning more royalties on that $30 book than a traditionally published one, correct?
Yes, you would think so. I mean, yeah, we're not privy to the latest in some of the offerings that might be at massive volume, but yeah, you would hope.
From your backgrounds that $6 is really, that's a good chunk of a royalty.
Yeah, look, it's certainly, I mean, for new people to the industry, they can sometimes think, oh gosh, $30 book and I'm only getting $6 back, but once you realize that, okay, well, the retailer wants a discount, and if you put a minimum discount on that, then it's less attractive to them. And
yeah,
do you want it to get into bricks and mortar stores? And
it has to be the right a profitable partnership for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Without a publisher taking part of that, I sometimes feel there's just not enough pieces of the pie for everyone to share. So if you're self-published, at least the publisher is out of the equation. So the author keeps more.
And there's some e-commerce options that we're hoping to launch, within the next 12 months as well in Australia, which will also be really exciting here. That so that you can, publishers, with their own websites and their own really solid digital footprint, will be able to share and sell a link and just sell direct. So that's something we're really excited about, and we're
Wow. When did you say that's coming?
Well, look, I don't know yet exactly, but I know there's some really clever people working on it, and it's
wow,
being used in the US to a certain number of accounts. So so that's something really exciting for us.
That's just wonderful. I love to hear about that. Now, bookstores, can you please explain? It's all new terminology for a lot of people. Now, IngramSpark sells to bookstores, but often bookstores ask self-published authors to do consignments because they want to be able to return the books. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, for a bookseller to take a risk on ordering in, let's say there's a book launch, and for a small bookshop to order in 100 copies and just hope that they're going to sell from there, they have to be prepared to take that risk. And what we find is that in Australia, a lot of authors will tend to order their own kind of copies themselves through their IngramSpark account. And and it's, look, I understand it's a bit of a hassle getting, books are heavy, getting them to places, but that's another option too, is that if the books that don't sell on the day, they can go back with the author, or but yeah, in general, bookstores have to make their own decisions, whether they'll take that risk of bringing in, if they think it's going to sell through.
But is it correct that if a bookstore places an order through IngramSpark through their iPage account, they can return those books? There is the sale or return option, or is it firm sale?
Yeah. Through their iPage accounts, it's likely, depending on the contract agreement with them, it's likely to be a firm sale. So if they're ordering through iPage, that's where they would not want to, not want to take that risk, and it might be better for the author to come over with their own stock.
Yeah, it's tricky. This is a big, for self-published authors, getting into bookstores is the holy grail. And it's not that the book, it's tricky, isn't it? Do you think there's room for a solution to make it possible for self-published authors to be stocked just as easily in a bookstore as a traditionally published author?
Yeah, look, it's ideally it would work better for them. But yeah, I suppose, if you're comparing it to it works quite well, I think, in the US, the return system, but you're comparing it to the huge volume there.
What's the return system in the US? How is it different?
Well, usually the retail would be able to return, is my understanding. So whereas here, most bookshops are kind of, ordering through firm sales. So there'd be, more risk averse, I guess, to having stock on their shelves.
Okay. Just a couple more questions. What are your tips for non-fiction authors to succeed using IngramSpark as a distributor?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a distributor, it's the moment you're enable global distribution, the capability is there. So it's then, okay, where do you go from there? And we do have our own kind of marketing options that you can use, paid options, and which include going to curated lists sent to verified readers through Google and Facebook, and I think they start just around $350 per ISBN, US dollars, I think that is, to access those kind of paid facilities. But we also have a lot of helpful information there about marketing and getting, because that's I guess the next thing. We're not sitting there with a sales team going out promoting all of the IngramSpark books. That would be like walking out with millions and millions of titles. But so yeah, for authors, it's about do all of those things that I'm sure you would be great to advise, and that's including using your social media, using your connections, walking into your local bookshops, talking about showing your book, going to your local library, showing your book there, trying to getting some media and getting some author events and all of those kind of things that you can do yourself. Accessing marketing. I mean, people use all sorts of different social media to promote TikTok, and
they sure do.
And like not everyone won't have the kind of personality to be doing a dance and holding up their book and those kind of things. But yeah, when you do, that's great. But it's finding, I suppose, the marketing that you're comfortable with, and utilizing people like you. That have done it and are in the industry. So if they decide they need to go that next step, they can do that as well.
Okay. And just on the approximately 350 package that IngramSpark has, if someone was to Google for that specifically, what is that?
Well, it's available in their account, so they can go to their account and look up marketing. Yeah, within the account itself. So the accounts, are constantly evolving too. The Spark accounts,
they really are. Yeah,
and they've got the sales tools in there, so you can go in, you can have a look at your sales. It's really exciting when our Spark accounts and authors and publishers go in and see they've sold books that for some reason have just popped up in India, and they're like, wow, just sold
it's really
copies.
nice.
Or why? Yeah, why? Why? Yeah. What happened? How can I tap into that?
It's so. My final question for you is: how would you, having worked in traditional publishing and seeing, being so connected with how things are evolving for self-published authors, how would you describe the opportunities for a self-published author nowadays in Australia compared to, 10 years ago?
Oh, I think the best thing about it all, Jess, is that we're getting content to readers that would never have hit print or hit, digital ebooks. So, where I think that's the biggest thing is like when you think back before all of this, it's how many great stories were never told.
I know.
And because it was too hard, it was like, you had to go through an agent, and then you had to, you had to do this, and then you lost control of the format, and, you perhaps, got disenchanted with with things. And for many, of course, they made and still will make a great success. For Spark authors, they may start off with us, and suddenly their book goes viral on TikTok or something, and then next thing they're being shopped around for big
global deals.
Yeah. They might end up there anyway, but we're facilitating them to get going. So
this amazing freedom of speech. I actually got back ALS, one of the library suppliers. They, in their own marketing material that they sent me, they said they recognize the important function of self-published authors in sharing stories that would otherwise go untold, which is just, it's fantastic. And it's true, because it may not be commercial in a safe sense, but it's more interesting because of that,
Yeah. And it's also, keeping titles in print, because it's like, titles that it's like, okay, back we can't afford to run that print run anymore because we don't want them sitting in a warehouse. Now you can just leave them in the platform, and your back print's always there.
That's amazing. And just on libraries, so can you just explain, because Australia has around 5 library suppliers and authors need to register with each one, but are those libraries printing through you, but then who's paying the author?
Well, that's all in, they're kind of an account based on just like another retail account. So they'll have their own kind of, their own relationship through the library and library suppliers. The major library suppliers in Australia are great because of the coverage that they do.
They have.
They really reach out. But, as I say, it certainly doesn't hurt to be putting your sales sheets out to around, particularly in your local area, because, in Australia and New Zealand, we all love local content, don't we?
We do.
And when you say really local, like, in your community, that's where you can really get things going. And, suddenly you're doing little speaking events and, you got an author in your community people can relate to. So that kind of thing, I think, is another option that our authors and publishers can explore.
So maybe put together a flyer and go to your local library and say hello.
Yeah, absolutely. And and look up all the libraries and send your flyer out, digitally if you can, and all of those kind of things that are just trying to, because there's as we know, Jess, there's a lot of noise out there and there's a lot of titles out there now. So you've just kind of got to look to differentiate yourself in some capacity.
With the personal touch.
Yeah, with personal touch, and then, and persist. I've had great conversations in the last couple of months with authors that have been kind of going along for 2 or 3 years and, getting some sales here and there, and then suddenly it explodes. And
Really?
And it's like, they're just, wow, why is it just happening now? And that's the magic.
That's amazing.
That's the magic ingredient. Is if we all knew that, then
so important to keep believing in yourself. And it can be hard, but if you love your craft and you love writing stories, you just keep going. And you'll always be in print. That's the wonderful thing, because to me it's heartbreaking to think that your book is only available with a limited shelf life and then it's gone. That's terrible.
Yeah, that's right. And or you see it in some kind of recycle shop, and that's the only place you're ever going to see it again. But no, it can sit there ready to go. And like I was saying a bit earlier, with your and we go out to accounts regularly and say, hey, have a look at your metadata. We look at accounts that have not priced perhaps overseas for one reason or another, and it's like, have you thought about enabling pricing in the US? Who's to say your book that you've written here, which is maybe an adventure story set in the outback, isn't going to sell copies in the US? Of course it could. Particularly if something happens, there's some big media story in the outback, and suddenly it's like, it's that.
Googling outback stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you were saying in that tip specifically was to enable global distribution. You should do that from the start though. What did you mean about pricing for the US or?
Oh, well, that's the same kind of thing. So, in your Spark account, you can go in and you can putting pricing in for the US.
Every market.
For every market. Assuming you've got rights. There are some authors that may not have rights to sell for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But assuming you've got rights, then it's really so quick just to go.
Oh gosh, it never occurred to me that you wouldn't put it in. Is that all that you're saying? Is oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we can do a scrape and kind of look at it and say, hey, there's all these titles here that we think are pretty good. If you thought about enabling distribution and once again, it's one of those things people don't realize.
They don't realize. Now, that's paperback pre-orders. Do you allow it?
Pre-orders? Yeah. Pre-orders we can have in the system, yeah.
Okay. Because Amazon does not.
Right.
They only allow ebook.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But it seems inconsistent anyhow. Well, that was absolutely fascinating and it will be so valuable for listeners. So thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the Hembury Books podcast.
Well, thank you, Jess. And to all the listeners, jump on IngramSpark website, ingramspark.com, and have a look and jump into the calculator, see how much money you can make. And
keep writing. Yeah. Finish the book.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chris.